Welcome to The Hop. This is David Charles Allen, realtor at Village Properties with my good friend and co-host Patti Teel. How you doing, Patti?
I'm doing great, David. Thank you for asking.
We have a wonderful guest later, but I wanted to dive into the interest rates and how the market's performing over this last week. Interest rates are the same as last week, so 3.125 for conforming 30-year fixed and 3% for jumbo non-conforming. In terms of how the market's doing, there's 10 homes coming soon, 47 new listings, 7 price changes, 50 pendings, and 48 that closed within the last week. So we're still seeing a negative supply with more pendings than we do new listings. And I mean, interest rates are going up right now. How quickly will they go up? Will they drop? Nobody really knows. Usually interest rates have an impact on pricing and people being able to afford houses. So it's an interesting point in time we're in, that's for sure.
It is interesting, and time will tell where it goes.
Time will tell.
Next up on the Hop, we have a guest that we've been so excited to interview. David, I'm going to let you introduce him.
All right. Thanks, Patti. Before we bring on a guest, I did want to give a shout out to a longtime family friends of mine who are selling their home in Solvang. I can't state enough how much love they put into this 1920s home when they completely renovated it and turned it into this beautiful space with fabulous enchanting gardens and only a short walking distance to downtown Solvang. Whoever's lucky enough to call this new place home is really going to be overcome with grace. The feeling that flows through your body when you walk through the door, you will understand why it was ended up named Grace Cottage. To all our listeners out there, send some positive energy their way that this home goes into the hands of new owners who are going to be able to appreciate it for years to come. For more details, the address is 1706 Laurel Avenue in Solvang, California. And as always, feel free to reach out to me personally with any questions.
That's a great shout out, David. And I know that house as well, and the owners, and it is just a fabulous location. 1 block walk to downtown Solvang and just immaculate. So whoever does get that house is going to be lucky indeed.
It is. And now we'll welcome our great guest, and we're very excited about him. Like you said, longtime jeweler, Cal Brockman of Goldmark Jewelers. How you doing, Cal?
Well, I'm doing very well. Thank you, David. It's great to be on the phone with you.
It's great to have you. So let's start off with the easy question. When and how did you know that you'd be working with precious stones?
That is a good question. I started getting interested in art a whole long time ago in school. And it went from very early when I was just, doodling and drawing and getting something down on paper to where I started to have the opportunity to play with other media like paint and color and things like that. So I just always kind of gravitated toward drawing and creating images that were something that I had either been looking at and trying to draw or something that was just simply coming out of my brain and getting it down on paper. And I got to the point where I could do it well enough that people could look at it and see what I was trying to draw. And so that was really a prerequisite for being able to even talk about what I might be able to do for somebody. So I was very comfortable drawing, and I would make sketches. I would show people sketches, and we would talk about it and come up with the finer points, make changes and all of that. And that's on paper, but I first was exposed to working with pieces of something, such as pieces of metal and pieces of other material, also during school years. And I became increasingly attracted to bending metal. This is a long story. I'll make it a little bit shorter.
Go, take your time.
Bending. And I had a high school teacher who was making jewelry and showing it in local galleries. And so we had a very elemental opportunity to try making little ornamental pieces of brass and copper, and we could bend it, polish it, we could connect it together, and we could make the shape that we wanted, and we could make it into an object that could be worn. That was very primitive, but I really took to the practice of doing the fine little finishing and the fine little forming of the pieces, and it got me very interested in jewelry. The gemstones came later, because first you have to get to the point where you can begin to afford gemstones. And so it was a process. And of course, my first gemstones were the less expensive ones that were easily obtained by a student and still could be incorporated into jewelry very attractively and very happily for people. But I became more and more exposed to the exotic stones and the ones that were the more valued through traditional jewelry. And I, over the years, became very aware of what I liked and what I wanted to see in a gemstone, and became a more competent buyer, to where I could find really good stones to meet certain requests and needs, so that it was a good process for me to be able to glean through what I could find from different vendors in order to find the stones that really stood out to me. And consequently, I became really quite spoiled, because I would see magnificent color, and then it would be hard for me to see something that didn't affect me the same way, and have to make a choice for something that wasn't as exciting. But there's also the reality of cost. So it's a special treat when somebody wants a really top of the line stone, and I know that they're getting it because I've seen what top of the line is, and to be able to present it to them as that is really a special treat.
Wow. You know, I read in your bio that you started your business or founded it in 1976. So you've been doing it such a long time. And yet, when I hear you talk about it, it sounds like you still have the same zest that you had all those years ago. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. You know, I have to say, I love it. I have loved it. And yes, I've been doing it for a very, very long time. And there are aspects of it that have become more and more difficult for me. And yet there are advantages to utilizing some of the new computer technology to do some of the imaging, to be able to show people ideas. And especially in recent times, when so many brides wanted lots of little stones to create a pattern or what they call a halo around a center stone, because that's really, really hard to do by hand.
Right.
And so much more affordable and so much more obtainable when you have the advantage of the engineering component of a computer CAD program that can make everything absolutely precisely identical to the one that precedes it. So that if I'm doing a line or a curve of diamonds, I can see it laid out on a computer and know if I have to shift something a little bit or raise something or lower it. And it's so much more accurate and so much more dependable that it has taken away a lot of what my increasingly limited close-up vision challenge me at. And so it really is a much more enjoyable process. And I don't like to use it in a standard way. I enjoy really pushing the envelope with all of these techniques to achieve something that is very unique for me, as well as has creating a lot of problems for me to overcome and find a way around. So that stays really fresh, even though I resisted getting into anything that compose a computer program like that. Because I'm a hand worker. I always have been. I've drawn by hand, I've carved by hand, and I've built and finished pieces by hand. And I still do, but for some of them, it's just much more reasonable to be able to lay it out with a computer. And the advantage to that is that I can create a pretty decent looking, what they call a rendering, a three-dimensional picture. And we can move it around. We can look at it upside down and backwards, and we can see it from the side, and we can change the position of stones, and we can change the type, the shape, the color, and the number of stones. So it's a tremendous visual tool that is instant vision. You don't have to wait for something to develop. It's just make the changes on the computer. So that's really a wonderful thing that technology has afforded that I enjoy making full use of.
Wow. I encourage our listeners. I don't know, David, if you had a chance, but I went to the website, goldmarkjewelers.com, and they have a demonstration. And so I could imagine a bride trying to design with you the ring she wants and seeing exactly what it looks like before they purchase it or before you actually make it. It was amazing. It looked like so much fun. And of course, the younger people are probably so comfortable with that technology that it's very accepted by them.
Oh, that's an excellent comment, because yes, younger people are totally familiar with the environment of seeing something on a computer screen, and they're unafraid to pick up the mouse and move things around and click on things. That they're faster than I am. I can't keep up. And yet I have a magic tool, and it's called a reset button. So when somebody has just turned something into a complete opposite of what it was that I showed them at first, I just hit that reset button. It goes right back to my original design. So I can relax. I don't have to worry that I've lost all that.
It's very cool.
But you know, that's a great observation, because I never was raised around or thinking that it was anything for me to know how to use or work with computers. And it was never part of my profession. But now it's almost unheard of that somebody is sitting down like I used to, and still do from time to time, and literally lay it out by hand as a drawing. And if I'm going to show somebody 3 or 4 different ideas for a ring, I got to draw them out if that's the circumstance. And that's not common anymore. It's so much easier for somebody to use a computer. And so in order to be competitive and in order to be current, I've found that has been a very wise decision on my part.
Yeah, it sounds like you have, from your artistry background, it sounds like you have a really unique approach to working and with creating one-of-a-kind pieces for each of your customers. And it does seem like the shift has been. Now, do you still get a lot of people that ask for hand drawings, or is it strictly only to the computer now?
Well, no, there's kind of 2 different ways to approach it, depending on what it is that you want. If what you want is traditional and the type of ring that you probably have seen, and you just happen to like that and want that for yourself, we can still do things that are very, very different. But the approach is essentially, you start with a traditional band, you put a stone on top of that, or 2 or 3 stones on top, and then you come up with some kind of a decorative ornamentation, or a decorative frame or housing, to make the ring more individual and to create more art. But if what you want is something that is a real sculpted art piece that has quite a bit of movement and change up of surfaces and creates a much more individual and very, well, I use the term art, and I that's how I feel about it, but something that really is a one of a kind that has a very particular look to it and a very strong degree of design styling, then that almost never works out with a CAD computer when you're trying to do one of a kind, because it requires so much manipulation of the program, and it doesn't always want to go the way that you want it to go. And I have long since, because of my drawing ability, been able to convey that better when I lay it out on paper. Yeah. Again, the big advantage to the computer is I put it up on the screen and we can move it around and look at it from every possible view and angle, which we're visual people, and 3-dimensional is clearly easier for people than just 2-dimensional. And so I really like that ability to show somebody the 360-degree image rather than just side and top, because not very many people can really visualize and get a feel for what it looks on their hand looking at a drawing, even a fairly good drawing. And then I can also convey color in the CAD drawing. I can give you your red rubies and your blue sapphires and your green emeralds as images that are appearing in the middle of this ring drawing. That's a lot harder to do with a drawing on paper, and I can't really make the stone lively or have any sparkle. So I really like having the capability of showing gems using the CAD design.
Wow, that's so cool that you can do both. And, we haven't mentioned to people, you have a brick and mortar store in Portland, Oregon, and also people can work with you online?
Yes, I'm still tied to the brick and mortar store for some time to come now, and it's a portal. It's where you can come and actually be in a conversation with me, and we can look at actual pieces, and we can just kind of share the excitement of proceeding through the steps and the stages that result in your ring. And that's what I'm used to that. That's what I have always done. And I'd have to say that, yes, I prefer it. Mm-hmm. But then it's amazing how much communication can occur with an image that can be shared either through an attachment with email or just sending a text message with a photograph attached to it. And because I can take different angle photographs, and so I can show a lot with a photograph that's transmitted that way. And I have yet to try to do anything like using Zoom as a shared window, mm-hmm. in so that they could look upon something and see it. It's not easy to see detail on sure. little tiny pieces like that. So, but it's reasonably easy to see it when it's being transmitted as an image on a phone or with a good camera as an attachment. So I am that's but brick and mortar is the traditional way, and that is how I've always done business. And I have many more opportunities to show somebody something if they say, well, what if? And I think, well, wait a minute, let me show you something that I've got. And then it gives them an actual hands-on image that they can see and look at and get a feel for and even try on at some time. And that is helpful. Otherwise, you are relying on what you are perceiving when you see an image and how you think it's going to look if it is done for you. Because if you have a stone in the middle of a ring that is a round, and what you really want is a square or a triangle or an oval, that takes some visualization. And then if you change the size and the shape, or not the shape of the stone, but the size of the stone and the color of the stone, it's hard to imagine. So I try to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
It really is all about perception in everyone's different minds.
Right. But nothing like trying jewelry on in person. There's no doubt about it. But I just know in this day and age where people, have been reluctant to travel, they could still enjoy your services long distance. But, jewelry looks so different on different people's hands and wrists. And too, it's some people wear a bulkier style jewelry and it looks great. And if I put it on my finger, it kind of looks really funny. So trying it on is absolutely the best.
Well, and if it isn't funny looking because of something that doesn't seem to fit, it sometimes looks funny to you because it doesn't really fit what you wanted it to look like or what you really wanted for your ring. And that's what I would have to call personality. And that's so individual. But it's fun I develop relationships while I'm working through ideas with people, and there's a give and take, and there's a trust factor, and there's also the nonverbal communication, which I can't say that I'm looking for or really able to identify, but I know it's there.
Yeah, you bring up personality as well, and just rings and stones. I know you've been in the business quite some time. Do you ever get to know someone that really doesn't know what they quite want yet, and you really get to know their personality a little bit better? And in the back of the mind, you know what stone they're going to go with, but they just haven't made that decision yet? Or is there kind of personality types for different stones you've kind of come to recognize?
Well, yeah, that's a great question, because in many, many professions, as well as personally, selling of any kind, your business as well as mine, you look for the clues that will help you perhaps identify what that personality or part of that personality might be, to where it triggers some kind of an experience that you've had, and you become a very helpful person to suggest ideas or direction or design concepts, in my case, just based on your instinct as you've been talking to the person. And sometimes if you know their story, if you know if they've had I just have to say, if they've had any kind of association with something that they've been wearing as a piece of jewelry, if it has great importance to them, or if they loved it when it was on grandma, or if they loved it when it was on mom, and they really don't want to change it very much, but they don't want it exactly the way that it was for mom. I mean, that's powerful stuff. And sometimes I've had women especially who have come in with a mother's ring where their mother has recently passed, and it's got a lot of emotion tied into it, and they can hardly stand to let somebody handle it, let alone talk about what we're going to cut off or not cut off. And that's been educational.
Yeah, I can
But the satisfying,
totally, yeah, relate to that. And I'll tell you my story, but I didn't mean to interrupt. So you go ahead and finish what you were
oh, I was
saying.
just going to say, there's very few things that are any more satisfying than at the end of that process, and they just go, oh, they're
I
so
know.
happy. They're
I know.
so they feel like they have honored mom or grandma, but on the same token, this is more the ring that they wanted. So
Mhm.
that's very gratifying to me.
Right. Yeah. I just understand the importance of that. My mother had a piece of jewelry that her mother got married in, and I always admired it. You know, I just always just would ask to see it when I go home, even as an adult. Can I see that? And then my mother got Alzheimer's, and she didn't even remember who I was. And yet it was so important to her to have my brother send that to me. And it came in the mail, and I thought, oh, you know, because he did her shopping, but somehow she knew the importance of that and she sent it to me. And it meant so much to me. I mean, there's a sad part to this story though. When my house burned down, I didn't really care about anything else, but it was that piece of jewelry that was from my mother that she remembered me enough to know how much it meant to me, that it was gone. And that still brings tears to my eyes today to think of it. I actually, though, have a picture of my grandmother wearing it on her wedding day, or my brother has it anyway. I bet if I could find that, maybe you could reproduce something very similar for me.
Well, I couldn't have put it any better myself. And thank you for sharing that. That's a tender story, and it matters greatly when somebody has a story like that and they're willing to share it. But I find that I'm sometimes the first person to hear that story, since the ring has been put away in a drawer or something. It can be a powerful experience. I've had a lot of people who have just really they didn't realize how it was going to affect them, and they just got very, very upset and calmed down finally. But it was surprising. They didn't know it was going to happen, and so it just took them. They didn't come in thinking, well, I'm not going to lose it, or I'm going to be okay about this. They just didn't know.
Right.
So your story, Patti, is touching, and it went a different direction when you said that your house burned down.
I know.
Yeah, because usually that story would be, well, that's all I have left, or that, and I've had this now, and I've never known what to do with it. And sometimes, like I say, they've just never gotten over the fact that it was so hard for them to think about changing that ring or so. But to sum up what you just said, yes, as long as you've got a fairly good image, I just have always said there's a logic to every design. So even if we can't really see the ring very well, we know that there are certain things that happen in order for it to be a ring. One is it goes around your finger.
This was actually, this was a necklace, actually.
Oh, well, okay. That's I'd say they're similar there, but and again, you know, very few pieces of jewelry do not have a beauty to their shape and to their design. Even if they're really, really simple, there's still a simplicity and beauty, so that reproducing something, we can usually get close and possibly even really do it. But if I've got pictures, then we can reconstruct an idea.
Very cool.
That's beautiful. So Kyle, I wanted to ask you, you said that, my mom actually told me that you said, trusting I'm going to be successful and stay at it even when things take time. So I know patience is a lot of things that people don't have quite yet. And it's really growing in terms of patience. And how do you kind of use that in your day-to-day life?
Well, don't paint me too bright a picture. I have a very, very difficult time doing some of the pieces that I do. And I can be working on something and it'll disintegrate. Literally, a flame that I have on one part of the piece, somehow I missed the fact that it was heating up another part of the piece, and I've just got something has just collapsed, and I just have to stop and stare at it and realize I have to fix this. I have to do it. So patience is very required. Plus, many of the techniques that are required to put jewelry together require sitting still and really concentrating and either repeatedly making a pushing or a cutting move to get something accomplished, or you have multiples and you're just in multiple stones and you just have to do it over and over and over. But that's the technique. You are literally assembling a piece. But most of the time, the patience also is for me to get it to where it accomplishes the image that I had in mind when I set out to build the piece. And sometimes I'm over my depth, and I look at it and I think, what was I trying to do? Why can't I do this? And why is it not going into the form that I wanted it to do? So yes, it does require patience. And if you don't have patience, you throw it across the room. You know, and with anything, if you can't cook something that you're trying to cook, you may end up just throwing it out rather than trying to make it taste the way you want or make it turn out the way you want. And I think it's the same thing. But in my profession, in the way I do this, it requires a full concentration. And if I don't have patience, I can't sit still and just keep at it until I get something positioned just right, get something to take the right shape, or get something to where even the stones have to be positioned so that they line up the way I wanted them to, or they fit into the piece that I want them to. And patience is just a very necessary trait, along with controlling your temper.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, some people, like my mother, who, of course, as I spoke about earlier with her piece of jewelry that meant so much to me, but she always had such patience to do fine work, whether it was knitting or crocheting or all kinds of, you know, fine work, sewing. But it drives me crazy, anything like that. So I don't think I have the right propensity or personality to be a jewelry maker.
You know, I think that's very illustrative. Well, I'm sorry, but I think it's very telling. It's very telling of our generation, mm-hmm. and the people of our time. People don't require that kind of tiny little detail work where they are expected to learn how to do it and then to patiently do it in the same way that mother and grandmother did it, because we don't have that idea of having to be that patient and not seeing any results. Mm-hmm. You know, it's same as Edison or somebody like that, who had a huge amount of failed experiments until he finally accomplished some of what he wanted to do. But that's all he had. He couldn't do it any other way. He had to be completely willing to do it over and over and over and over again. I bet I don't have that kind of patience.
That's a good point.
I think it has a lot to do with patience, but as well as presence. So if you're present in the moment, you're allowed to sit down at a task and really complete it at hand. And like you're saying, it's generational. So the younger people have this immediate need for satisfaction. So whether they're looking in the past or in the future, they can't really, or not, I'm not saying they can't, but we're kind of losing our presence in a way that we're living in the moment and doing what's in front of us and not looking so much in the past and so much in the future where you can't control. So I think gaining that presence, and I think a lot of artists have that, where they can sit down and really draw something out and be present in that moment. And that's where all these beautiful kind of pieces come from, where someone's able to be present, putting all their energy into one specific thing that's in front of them, and not thinking about everything else and what's in their future, what's in their past as well.
Well, I agree. I think that there's a lot of creativity out there that is the result of people who are very patient with their approach and their willingness to just work it a tiny, tiny little bit at a time until they've accomplished what it was that they set out to do, or what they like about what they're doing that they want to be their product. Yeah, the other problem that I have with my approach is everything is unique. I don't get happy doing the same thing repeatedly, and so I push myself and always am looking for something new in what it is that I'm doing, and usually have found it and really happy that I have, but it can be extremely difficult, and I push myself to always improve, to literally keep improving, do the design better. Although most of my pieces are not repetitive enough to put me in the danger of making the same thing twice. I just approach it from an individual standpoint, and that's a very satisfying thing, to be able to do something that I know is very much like what somebody is looking at in a book of my photographs, or or online on my site, or anybody else's site, and knowing that unless I use exactly the same stones and exactly the same pattern, it will be a unique ring. But I'm not just going to settle for shifting things around. I'm going to come up with a form that encompasses the stones and presents them in a way that is suitable to what they are, rather than just make do.
Wow, that's beautifully said. If somebody wants a unique piece of jewelry for themselves or a loved one, how would they get in touch with you if they're not walking into your store in Portland, Oregon?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. You mentioned earlier that I have a website, and that is certainly one way. And some people have contacted me through the website where it says contact us. And otherwise, I have an email that they can certainly can get me at. I can read it to you if you don't have it in front of you.
And also, in case people tuned in late, to give your website again would be great.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's fairly easy. It's CAL. Oh, this is first my email, correct?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, this is my email. It's CALBROX at Integra, spelled INTEGRA.net.
What's your website address?
Website, it's easy too. It's Goldmark Jewelers, and that's GOLDMARK Jewelers, all one word.
Perfect. Now, Cal, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Can you tell us what your favorite stone is and why?
Oh, my. Well, if somebody asks me my favorite color, it always comes back to blue.
Of
course. But I'll tell you, I also really love the teal greens. And so my favorite stone, I'll tell you, this just came into mind because there's so many that I like so much. But genuine natural alexandrite. Okay. It is a stone that we see imitated a lot. And it's beautiful, even its imitation, because it's this rich purple color that when you get it into certain light, and especially under daylight, will flash with either a blue-green or a reddish purple, depending on and it's the synthetic or the simulated stone of alexandrite is what I'm talking about now. And they're beautiful, they're hard, they're durable, and so they're popular that way. But the genuine article, alexandrite, is it truly has the ability to demonstrate two different colors. You don't have the bandwidth for me to try and explain it in a laboratory way. Just let me tell you, it has a very special makeup, and its atomic trait allows it to transmit two distinct color bands out of the same stone. It's unique that way. It is a beautiful combination of a very deep, true green teal, but a green with a little bit of teal under typically interior lights. And then you take it outside in the sun, and it goes deep wine red.
Ooh.
Wow. That just sounds beautiful.
Yeah, and
It's a wonderful stone.
And I read in some notes that it's considered to be lucky and is an amulet of good fortune. So not only is it beautiful, it can bring good luck to you.
It's rare. It would be very lucky for somebody to have one. It is, and it's disappearing very, very quickly. And this is part of the lore of gemstones, but also just simply one of the reasons you don't see them very much is that its sources are drying up until another find or another discovery is made. It's very hard to get really nice alexandrite at this time. And it is found primarily in South America. I want to say Brazil, but I'm not entirely sure. Originally they found it in the Ural Mountains of Russia, which became the Soviet Union, and I think that's Russia again. But it was named for Tsar Alexander, and so it has that kind of a romance and a history. But it's always been found in small batches, if you will, in its natural crystal forms. And lately, the better grade material has been extremely hard to find. And so it will become at least rare for a while, unless somebody finds another deposit of it. And the earth is full of surprises.
The earth is full of surprises. Well, thank you so much, Cal. We had such an amazing time with you today. We look forward to.
I can't wait to see the finished product.
Yeah, of course. I can't wait to see your shop whenever next time I'm up in Portland.
Yes.
Well, we're gonna or else I'll Zoom it for you. I'll put you on Zoom and walk around with my computer screen.
Oh, that would be very cool. Yeah, thank you so much. I learned so much, and it was really delightful talking to you.
Well, you were wonderful hosts, and I can't imagine how you got so much information out of my story that kept it going.
Oh, it was wonderful. Thank you, Cal.
Beautiful. Thanks, Cal. We'll give it a go next week, Patti.
Thank you so much, David. Bye-bye.
Bye.